Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back to another video with me, Alexander James. And this channel is called Jansending, and Jansending, very simply put, just means transcending. Jansending, because my name is Jansen, right? Alexander James Jansen, and I have a channel called Jansend, which is in relation to digital media and all of that stuff. But Jansending is just transcending, Jansending. So welcome back once again. Hope you're having a fantastic day, wherever it is you are in the world, whatever it is you're doing. In today's video, I want to touch upon something that I was watching recently, which was, being engrossed with external pursuits, we lose divine consciousness, right? And when I heard that being said, it was by a Hindu saint, let's say. He was talking about something like that. And obviously, now he's classed as a Hindu saint. When he was alive, he was also classed as a Hindu saint. But let's just say, basically being engrossed in the pursuits of things that are outside of you. And being engrossed with them. What does engrossed mean? Being, so caught up in, so engrossed, having those things become one with you, so much so that you lose sight of going inward, right? So you're just focused on pursuits outside. So sense gratification, so sense enjoyment, the fulfillment of the senses, i.e. lust, gluttony, all these different things, right? You're looking outside of yourself to fill a hole or a void that can be only filled from within. Nothing can fill the God void, right? Nothing can fill it. And you'll hear this in Christian churches. They say, seek Jesus Christ, he will fill that void for you, right? Within Hare Krishna, seek Krishna, Krishna will fill that void for you. I'm sure Muslims or in Islam will say, seek Allah and the Quran, and that will fill that void for you, right? Or whatever denomination or religion or you may be part of, right? There's always going to be in all of them, right? Because humans are human. And it's human nature to seek outside of oneself, right? The problem is, and they say this in the 12 steps as well, where the senses are run riot, right? I believe that God has given us specific senses for a reason, right? Specific feelings for a reason, let's say, feelings, senses, that kind of stuff. We've been given specific things for a reason. And when they kind of when they get distorted, then they cause us great pain. And that's how it is, really. If you look at the 12 steps where they talk about defects of character, right? Or you look at like sins or whatever you want to call it, at the end of the day, these are things that are causing you trouble. And if something's causing you trouble, then it's causing you trouble. And so it's affecting on your life. It's affecting on your vibration. It's affecting on your energy. It's affecting on your relationships. It's hindering your progress spiritually. It's hindering your progress mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, probably even sexually, right? Every different way. We've been given desires for a reason, I believe. And those desires are generally, if they're within the God context of, hey, they're in the right context and they're followed and kind of acted upon in those senses, they tend to not run riot, right? And they tend to not cause you so much trouble. The problem is that, if you have an addictive personality like I do, I definitely let a lot of those things like gluttony, right? Eat, just to get the hit. Oh, I feel great now, right? But effects on your bodily health then, or affected on my bodily health then. Or, for example, a little bit of wine is okay. However, if you're drinking 2-3 bottles a day, then it's probably not going to impact so well upon you. And so the problem is that most people walk around day in, day out, switched off, not connected, disconnected, and so then they therefore look for connection. But the problem is that the connection that they're looking for actually becomes an addiction, because they get addicted to the substance, which is actually the thing that they're looking for connection to, But however, they end up in addiction. Why? Because they're abusing a substance. That substance may be fine, right? That substance could be, for example, ganja, for example. That might be fine if it's taken in moderation. Again, don't quote me on this. I'm just saying it might be for somebody absolutely perfect. It could be very medicinal. Somebody could be doing plant medicine. Maybe they're microdosing LSD. These could all be things that are helping depression or whatever, right? And in moderation and, in the right way taken, they could be absolutely perfect for the person. However, if someone's taking like 19 LSD tabs per day, for example, just randomly saying something there, well then, they might be tripping balls for the next 2-3 weeks, and it's probably not going to impact very well upon them. However, it may. That person may have spiritual visions and save the world. I don't know, right? I'm just saying. If you're eating 20, 30 hamburgers a day, it's probably not the best thing, right? If you're, fucking around the clock, again, nothing wrong with that, right? If that's what you want to do and you enjoy doing. If you're doing it round the clock and it's affecting and impacting your life in general in a negative way, then it's bad. But however, nothing is either good or bad, only thinking that makes it so. Let's see. However, is that true or is it not? You don't know, right? Until you're practicing those things, until you're doing those things, and we'll just take the example of, we said fucking, right? Let's say, now, there's obviously making love, there's sensual love making, there's fucking, there's this, there's that, there's all of those things, right? And nothing wrong with any of those things, God-given. However, when they run riot, maybe you have no time left in the day. Maybe it fucks up your business. Maybe it fucks up your relationship in some other way. Or maybe it fits absolutely perfect and it really does you very well. So then therefore you're happy and it's a perfect fit for you. Maybe, I was listening to Krishna Das recently, where he was doing the coffee and chai chat, or the chai chat he does. I'll try and link the video below this one. And the guy asks him about celibacy, and he comes over and he says to him, hey, listen, the sense enjoyment thing, it's like, I can stay celibate for a while, but then, I'm back at the same thing again. And it really comes down to yourself. You have to, in a sense, you don't have to do anything, right? But I'm just saying, you'll be over here, you'll be on a spectrum of doing this all the time, and then you'll be over here and you'll be on a spectrum of doing that all the time, i.e. you could be out having sense enjoyment all the time here, lust, fucking, and then you come back over here and you're celibate for a whole length of period of time. You have to, in a sense, balance, right? My opinion on that is you have to have both until you know, like Krishna Das said as well, until you know what is what you want. Does that ever go away? Maybe not. Maybe not in this lifetime. Has it? Will it continue? Who knows? If you believe in reincarnation and you believe in lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes, then, the Hindu saints or the Hindu sages had seen it all. The ones that became enlightened, they had seen it all. They'd done lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes of that stuff, right? And get to a point where they don't need that anymore. It's like the Buddha sitting on the lotus flower and all the temptations are coming in and they just fall to petals at his feet, right? Why? Well, because he had overcome the world. So living in the world and not being of the world has a really good meaning to it. We are in this world and we are either of it or we are not of it. And if you take a Christian or a Catholic perspective, my grandmother always said to me, you should be in the world. We are in the world, but we are not of it. And that was her context and take on the fact that you are in this world, but when those temptations come to go out drinking with your friends for 5 nights in a row, nothing wrong with drinking, by the way. If you enjoy it, that's fine. And they say enjoy it responsibly. But what if you like going out and getting smashed every now and again? Is that wrong? No. I mean, that's entirely up to yourself. I'm not condoning it. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe the person needs that every now and again. I don't know. The point is, I'm just saying, if something's hindering you, so you're going out getting smashed every time, so you're obviously, technically, if you're doing this all the time, you're kind of in the world, aren't you? Because you're in the world, but you're out of your mind, but you're still in the world. But you ain't out of your mind in a spiritual sense, although you could call everything spiritual. You're out of your mind with alcohol, drugs, sex, this, that, whatever that might be, food, it doesn't matter, gambling, it doesn't really matter, right? But you're out of your mind, but you're not yourself, right? So then being in the world and not of the world is very interesting, and it's in many religions, right? They'll say we are in this world, but when the temptation to sin comes, or the temptation to act upon a defect of character comes, and we pursue that, well, then we're of the world. However, if a defect or a sin temptation comes to us, or we walk into it, or it is brought in one of the various ways that it can be, which I'll get into that in the future. Maybe you're tempted and some demonic forces coming your way or whatever, and some people say, that's not true, whatever. We'll get into that more in different things, but let's say something is sent your way via something else, i.e. a spell or demons or something of that nature. Maybe it's nothing like that. Maybe it's just a random encounter, which sometimes happens, where you get tempted to sin and you do that repeatedly. Well, then you're back in the world, aren't you? Because you haven't turned away from the temptation, and when the temptation has come up, you haven't asked for help from a power greater than you, which for me would be divine love light that resides within me. You haven't asked for that help, so then therefore you fall to the temptation, you go through the cycle, and then you now emerge remorseful with a firm resolution to never do that thing, sin again. And so you go through the remorse, the pain, the regret, and then you move on. And sometimes you learn from it, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have to go through repeated battering and repeated pain for many, many years before something clicks, right? And maybe that is that you have a spiritual awakening or a spiritual experience, or maybe you go on a plant ayahuasca trip and you're free from it. Or maybe you're not. Maybe you die in this life with that, and maybe you have to go on and be reborn in the next life to overcome such. It's written in the Yoga Sutras. The seeds of desire spring up once again. The person exits this life, this body, and maybe they exited it in a state of real lust. They couldn't overcome lust, but they die. The body dies, and so, as they say, right, the spirit leaves the body or whatever to a higher plane, but then at a certain point the seeds of desire spring up once again, and the person has to be reborn to live it again. But maybe they get born into a pious family, which is talk about in the Gita. Krishna says that maybe they get born into a pious family and then are in a circumstance or situation where they now have the circumstances that they needed to overcome that which hindered them for many lifetimes. Now, again, all of this is to be taken as you see fit. Is it true? I don't know. Do you know? I'm just giving you information that I've learned over the years, and with my many experiences, I can help you by sharing this stuff. Please also leave a comment in the comment section below if you find this interesting. There will be lots of talk of many different religions, and I seem to be able to draw upon what I've learned and slot it into sentences as I'm speaking, because of how things have affected me and how I've seen things happen, and multiple people I've helped through the years with various aspects of addiction, recovery, trauma-based stuff, which I'll get into on this channel as well, all of these different things. And so just by learning different tools and techniques, I've been able to overcome panic attacks, depression, anxiety, fear, loneliness, fear of being alone, all of these things. I couldn't do those things before. But so we just come back to being engrossed with external pursuits. We lose divine consciousness. What's divine consciousness? Well, many different religions will say that divine consciousness is, Paramahansa Yogananda would say that the seat of divine consciousness is in your head, right? And that the only way to get there would be through Kriya Yoga, or, traveling up the spine to get to the head where the seat of divine consciousness sits, and then you are there. And obviously the Self-Realization Fellowship talks a lot about that. Is that true? Don't know. No idea. Is that true for you? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't know, right? I'm just saying. Some people will say awaken the Kundalini. I would stay away from that, personally speaking. I wouldn't fuck with that. Some people will say that they've had a great experience with that and it was the most wonderful thing they ever did. Catholics will tell you stay away from it. It is the devil, right? And so that you can be possessed by the many demonic entities by doing that. Other people say, yeah, I've done it. They never in their life heard of a demonic entity and they're absolutely fine and they've done it. Am I suggesting you do it? No, I would actually strongly advise against not doing it, but that's my personal belief and opinion. Please don't smash me in the comment section. Again, this is to be taken as you see fit. Take what you want and leave the rest. I personally would not go awakening certain things that you have no idea about. And even Hindu spiritual masters will tell you that if you do not know yourself, not to go anywhere near that anyway. No, I'm not telling you do or don't do it. I'm saying I'm staying well clear of it. So, yeah, but what is divine consciousness? Well, I mean, what is your consciousness? You're consciously aware when you're awake. Your perception is you see certain things, so you're conscious. If you're drinking, getting smashed, you may be less conscious, so you may do more crazy shit. That's interesting, isn't it? I'll get into more about alcohol and the body-eating spirit and possession and being taken for a joyride, or the body gets taken for a joyride. I'll get more into that in a second, but let's just say, right, consciousness, being consciously aware of decisions you make and actions you take in the day and moment you're in, would be saying that you're probably conscious. What is consciousness? Well, some people will say that divine consciousness is Brahman, or the, like basically the thing that's within you, right, within Hinduism. And I'm not butchering that completely. I'm just saying, like, giving you some ideas that they would say that it's like divine consciousness is within you, etc., etc. And that kind of goes along with my philosophy, but I don't necessarily believe that's Brahman or whatever. I just believe there's a divine love light that resides within me. I connect with that. I keep it really simple. And I pray to that and I act out of that on a daily basis. Other people will say that you have to go into deep meditation to get connection to divine consciousness. Again, God consciousness. Well, again, Paramahansa Yogananda would say, and he has a great book, Autobiography of a Yogi. You should read it if you haven't. He would say then divine consciousness is seated in the head, right? The seat of divine consciousness is in the head, and you have to travel up the spine to get there, etc., etc. But what about if divine consciousness is divine light that resides within you? Could that be divine consciousness? Again, comment in the comment section below. Conscious, becoming conscious of consciousness. Becoming conscious of consciousness. That's interesting. If you're meditating and you're becoming conscious, you might be becoming conscious of your God conscience. Some people say that within your tummy, go with your gut feeling. That could be God consciousness. So, again, being engrossed in external pursuits of X, Y, and Z takes you away from God. That's the bottom line. This is what I say with the whole video, right? Being engrossed with external pursuits, we lose divine consciousness. Yes, that's true in whatever religion or whatever thing you want to say. Even if you're not religious, doesn't matter. No judgment here. The bottom line is when you're seeking outside of yourself to fill something that can only be filled from within, trust me, I spent years doing it. Lust, addiction, drugs, alcohol, gambling, sex, fucking, food, everything. Seeking outside of myself for those external pleasures and pursuits. Not one time did they ever fill that void. Never. They masked it temporarily for some time. It caused great pleasure. Fantastic. Don't get me wrong, it was a wonderful time, I thought. Great feeling of pleasure, sense enjoyment. However, with that also comes a saying that springs to mind from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which is, as we swam downhill or climbed downhill for our pleasure, so too we had to climb back up for our pursuit of goodness, greatness. It's not the exact line, but it's so too as we went far from shore, let's say, as we climbed downhill for our pleasures, we had to go back uphill. And everybody knows, right? Going back uphill is much harder than going downhill. Downhill is much easier. We climb back up the hill to be liberated from the hurt, the pain, the regret, all of those things. Same way you could make an analogy that you swam far from the shore. Now you're fucked because you're out in the middle of nowhere without any paddle or anything, and you have to, maybe you lost the paddle, so now you gotta pant and come back from the water to the shore. And that is what losing divine consciousness looks like, or losing divine connection. We could say it that way, right? You're losing divine connection when you're seeking outside of yourself for all these pursuits of outer things, hoping that they will fill a void that can never be filled by outside things. You see billionaires that top themselves, shoot themselves in the head or whatever. Again, this is videos for educational purposes only. Please don't ban me for saying that. Basically, the bottom line is, nor do I condone anybody shooting themselves in the head. I do not condone that. I do not suggest you do that. I think that if you have a problem or you feel bad, then you should go and talk to somebody and talk about that. But the bottom line is, we'll just say for educational purposes only, many billionaires have shot themselves in the head or jumped off a cliff or done whatever, right, or committed suicide at the pinnacle of their career. They had billions, yet they weren't happy, right? Why? Because they were seeking outside of themselves, sense enjoyment. Fucking hookers all day. Please don't. Again, I'm just giving you an example. Doing this or that, and this is not derogatory meant towards women. I'm just saying in general, right? That's what they would say. Let's put it that way, right? Having sex with hookers all day, doing this and this and that. Drinking, taking cocaine, gambling, whatever, right? And then just being so dead inside that they could no longer live. So there was no animation anymore. They were in black and gray and darkness. And so then therefore they decided to exit. The soul that had enough, it decided to exit. In pursuit of the pleasures of this world, we end up in severe pain. Now, am I saying that you shouldn't get rich in this life? I think you should. I think it's a really good idea. And I think that it's very, very important to help yourself and your family and to be able to give back and actually pump back into those who are less fortunate than you, and to build services and businesses and things that help other people. It's very, very important. However, when the pursuit of outside worldly pleasures takes away from your pursuit of your divine consciousness or connection to God or something like that, well, then it's very, very bad, right? There was a nun who was interviewed. I think I was actually a saint as well, a Catholic saint. Oh, it was Mother Teresa. She was asked the question, how long do you spend in prayer in the morning? And she said, well, if I'm busy that day, I'll spend an hour. But if I know I'm going to be really, really, really busy, I'll spend 2 or 3 hours. Why? She was charging her battery, that's why. She was connecting to God. In her case, maybe it was Jesus Christ or different saints or whatever. And she needed that plug-in, to get plugged in. People in recovery say they get plugged into meetings. Plug into meetings. That's all well and good, but you often get a lot of people talking a lot of shit in a lot of meetings that fucks people up more than they ever were when they went in there in the first place. So, Alcoholics Anonymous, right? I could say to some of you out there, and this is not being judgmental, it's just being someone who's observing. Some of the meetings are off the wall, bonkers, fucking mental, sicker than sick, very spiritually sick. And I would advise any of you who are listening to this who have or go to a fellowship, be careful. And if you ain't spiritually fit and you hear things going on in a meeting that you don't see or lining up, seek someone who is transmitting something of good, valuable knowledge and is sober a long time and who has a good grasp and knowledge of the program, and go to them. Don't go to these other people who are telling you about who scored the first goal or who did this or that or whatever, because at the end of the day, meetings are fantastic. Meetings are not, let's say if someone's recovering from alcohol or drug addiction, yeah, you go in, go through the 12 steps as fast as possible, find a sponsor who's really, really good, right? You do all of that. You make sure that they go through it step by step as you're supposed to go through it. You clean house, you do all that shit, you make your amends, and then you go sponsor people, right? That's what you do, right? But the other side of that is, don't get lost in meetings 24/7. Let your recovery be all-encompassing. Let it flow into every area of your life. And the only way you're going to do that is after you overcome the problem with the whole drink, which I'll get into in different things, or the drink or drugs or whatever. I'll get into more of that in different videos. You need to be seeking spiritually and having a solid foundation spiritually. Like they say, step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. They say conscious contact with God. I'm saying we should not lose pursuits. We should not lose connection to divine consciousness. We should not lose connection to divine love light. Because when you lose connection to that, you're fucked. You're finished. You don't have a spiritual foundation. You have nothing to go off. So you have no base, you have nothing to go off, and you can't move forward. I know I'm hammering this message home in this video, but it's really, really important. So to recap, right? Once again, being engrossed with external pursuits, i.e. looking for things outside of you to fix you, being engrossed with that or stuck in that, you will never advance spiritually. You will never move forward. You will not grow. You will stay in the same position. You look back in 10 or 15 years and say, wow, I wish I'd listened to that guy on the internet who I saw that video of, i.e. me, or somebody else that you might have seen, telling you that stop seeking outside of yourself. It's written in the Hindu scriptures. It's written in the Gita. You know, Krishna's saying it. It's written in many Catholic things. Look at St. Augustine. You know, he said, God, 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 please, please save me, save me, save me from myself. But just not yet. I ain't ready yet, right? Maybe you're not ready. Maybe you're not ready yet, and that's okay. Maybe you need to step over to the nearest bar room and try some more controlled drinking, just to get a better knowledge or a full knowledge of your condition. Do I condone that? Yeah. If that's what you want to do, do it. Maybe you have to take those drugs. Maybe you do. Maybe you have to take every last drug. Maybe you need to take every last drop. Maybe you need to fuck every last person. Maybe you need to snort every last line of cocaine. Maybe you need to eat every last fucking cheeseburger. Maybe you need to gamble every last cent of your money to be in such a fucking bad position at rock fucking bottom, right? Because no one else is probably going to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you this. Maybe you need to do all of those things until you're at rock fucking bottom, because the end result of this really is jails, institutions, and death. One of those three things, right? One of those three things. Now, jails can mean many things. It can mean a physical jail, or it can mean a spiritual jail. Institutions can mean an actual physical mental hospital, or it can mean you're institutionalized in some other way. I don't know, right? Or death. Death can mean spiritual death, or it can mean the death of your body. Think about this very wisely when your friends are telling you, come out and do all these lines of coke, it's going to be great fun, and your soul knows this ain't the right thing for me. I shouldn't be doing this. I should be at home watching something or helping someone or whatever. You've no mental defense against that first acting out or drinking or drugging or whatever. So you need to find a power that's greater than you that is able to help you when those things happen. And I'll get into all of that in different videos as to why that happens and the reason those things happen, and the reason that you get pulled from doing the right things. Now, we're not always going to do the right things. However, we can put systems and things in place for us to do the right things when when every single fucking ounce and cell and fiber of your being and your soul is screaming out to do something different. You can put systems in place that when those things happen, that you have systems in place to help you stop doing those things so that you don't do them and so that you have a wonderful, fantastic life. Right? So, this has been almost a 30-minute video, but I think it should definitely give you some help in relation to being engrossed with external pursuits, and when you do that, you lose divine consciousnss or divine connection. What's the opposite of connection? It's addiction. Why do people get addicted? Because they're looking for connection. Simple. Why does, and I chatted to a girl recently. She was telling me this story, and she told me that, like, basically, she said like she wished she had never given up her virginity at the age she did. She told me that, right? And I said to her, I wish I'd never done it either. I wish I'd never given that up, because at the end of the day, right? This was a girl in Ireland, by the way. And at the end of the day, when, like, it actually makes sense in a lot of ways, and I'll get into this in different videos as well. And again, this is just my take on it. But at the end of the day, if you don't wait, if you're not waiting for marriage, right? What is marriage, right? They say, oh, it's a commitment before God at an altar, and, you know, this and this and that. And I'm not condoning the Catholic Church. I'm actually just saying, right? It's just that Obviously, the institution itself has a lot to answer for. We're not getting into that in this video. We will in different videos, trust me. But basically, like, it makes sense, right? If they say in the Bible, they say, man, a man shall leave his mother and father and go to his wife, and two shall be joined one in flesh. Now that makes sense, right? Because if they join in flesh, they're joined together and they're one and one, they're connected. But they're kind of in the eyes of God, right? The marriage is created, etc., etc. Same as a Hindu, let's say, celebration. Now, I don't know how Hindus look at sex before marriage. I don't really know that. I'm not someone who ever took part in not waiting. I didn't wait. I lost my virginity very young. So, but I'm just saying. So, as you know, I'm not a hypocrite saying this. I'm just saying it in context of, like, it's probably better to wait, right? Because you've got, and we'll get into this in different videos as well, the amount of spiritual ties that a condom ain't going to protect you against, the amount of spiritual ties, the amount of demonic entities that one can transfer, i.e. transference of spirits, that can happen very, very easily. So it's not just like sexually transmitted diseases you should be worried about. It's spiritual fucking warfare one-on-one that, like, when you're delving deep and you're dealing with someone who has a very fucking high body count, i.e. how many people they slept with, right? And if they're doing it regularly, can't even talk today, on a regular basis, right? If they're doing that on a regular basis, what you're going to get is, some people say, oh, you'll be full of entities. I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm not saying that either. It could very well be so. However, you're just dealing with a lot of energies, right? If you think the body is energy and someone's in a fucked up state and you're off, or you're making love to them or whatever, you think this is great, yeah, that's fine, but you're mixing with a lot of fucking energy. So there is an imprint of energy that comes from that person, and it's imprinted on you. Right, let's just say, for argument's sake, right? We'll do a little demonstration here. Now, this could be the man, or that could be the woman, this could be the woman, that could be men. Let's just say, right? Man is out doing his thing, blah, 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 blah. He's out in the fucking club every weekend. He's having great fun. And I'm just going to say it in layman's terms, he's fucking everything that moves, right? Fucking. And he goes off about his day and he's doing this, right? And he meets this one, Sandra, and he meets Victoria and Julia and Linda and this and that. And all of these imprints that he's, right? They're doing this, they're stuck together, all these imprints, right? Imagine my hand having 10 or 15 or 20 imprints on it, right? So all these imprints are on him. Now he comes over here and he meets another one and he's like, oh, I've met Francine, right? Connected. Now she's getting all these imprints in her energetically, right? So now she's dealing with all that stuff. Now you might say that's bullshit, but what if Francine's over here and doing this with Thomas and Francis and and she's full of all these fucking imprints, and now you've got this guy full of all these imprints and her full of all the imprints, and they're like that. Don't you think that there's going to be a transference of some form of energy if we are, as human beings, physical bodies, right? We're spirits, or we're spiritual beings residing in these physical bodies, walking around the place, right? And we're getting all this energy and then we're fucking slamming it together. Don't you think there's going to be some disconnection or fucked up frequency or some fucking thing that's going to be bad? Yes, what it's called is soul ties, spiritual ties, energy that should not be connected from one to another. It shouldn't be, right? One should be, this is great, this video is going to go on and on and on. I'm very, very happy. So all these people walking around with fucked up energies that have not even cleared themselves, right? Bang together, now they've got even more problems because they're all fucked up and they're not healed. So, versus someone who never had any connection to anyone, who's pure, let's say, and another one that's pure, and they happen to never have gone outside of the way of doing anything, and they just waited till marriage, and now there's only one. See the difference? One. No, I'm not condemning you because I've done it all my life, and I felt those energies, and I felt fucked up and all these different things. Not good at all. So this is just a warning to you. Like, you can go and you can Google this shit, you can look at it, and you can see there's many different ways, but the bottom line is really that it ain't the most coolest thing to be doing, let's say, for your own sanity, for your own peace of mind. And then you'll also get people that'll say, no, it's fine, you can do that. And again, there are many things that I'd like to chime in on here which are interesting also, which is that, and you might say I'm contradicting myself after just saying all of these things. Again, this is to be taken as you want, take what you want and leave the rest. But there are different things here as well, which are that, like, for example, some people have 4 or 5 wives or this and that and that. But again, it's kind of within the religious context. Okay, they're your wife, so you're only with that person. Now, do those energies cross over? Yes, of course. Is that good or bad? Again, to be taken as you see fit. I'm not saying it. I'm just saying, yes, the energies would also cross over, because how would it not matter if they're married or not married, but the energies are still crossing? They are crossing. So how do you see that? Comment in the comment section below. I'd be very interested to hear that, your thoughts on those things. Now I'm going to talk about how exactly you should cut spiritual ties or soul ties, and is that possible? Right, let's say we have got John, and he's been around fucking for the last 10 years, whatever, and he's been doing a lot of it, right? His body count is very high, let's say 200, 300, 400, 500. Off he comes, he's like, finds this really nice girl, and her name is Julie, and she hasn't been with anyone, right? And John's like, and she's like, no, she's very spiritual, right? Julie does yoga and she does positions and this, and Julie's very aware of crystals and energy and sage and all these wonderful things, and she knows what she wants, and she's been waiting all her life, and she ain't going to take John. But even though she really likes John, because John's kind of got out of a little bit of a vibration now where he's like kind of getting into a little bit of spirituality. He's like, okay, I get it. And he's talking to her, and she's like, yeah, well, I'm gonna wait. And he's, come on, it'll be fine, it'll be fun. And she's like, no, John, you need to have a salt bath. And John's like, what's a salt bath? Why do I get positioned to do these videos? I don't know. So we've got John and Julie tells John, hey John, you need to take a salt bath. John's like, what the fuck is a salt bath? So she puts him in a salt bath, and she's like, here's a whole bunch of salt, and yeah, take your time, right? And she's doing that, right? And John starts to notice over a few times, he gets a lot of salt baths. It's clearing his energy a little bit, but he's still fucking soul tied to like 500 people or whatever. And so the imprints and energies are on him, and he ain't having a good time, right? Because traumatically speaking, a lot of trauma that's stored within all these ones that are connecting with each other, they're now all stored in John. So Johnny's walking around with like all this trauma from past partners that he's been with, the spiritual ties, the soul ties, all of this shit. And he's also taken their energy in upon himself. So now he's walking around with all these soul ties and imprints of energy from different people and all their traumas, right? So not just one trauma, but 500 people with all these different traumas. So now his energy is totally fucked, right? Totally. So Julie's putting him in the salt bath, and John's in the salt bath, and he's getting rid of it. Now, what else does he have to do? Well, she probably sages him, white sage or Palo Santo or some shit like that. But here's where it gets interesting. John sees, after he's getting white sage or salt bathed or whatever, he sees the nature of his sins. And again, this is just a story, right? I'm just telling you. And you can just take this as you want and as you see fit. And John starts to see his sins. He's like, oh shit, I slept with all these 500 people. When I'm ready to repent, take me to Jesus, I'm ready to be baptized. I'm just saying, right? Or maybe he says, take me to the mosque or take me to the Hindu temple. I want to be purified. I don't know, right? But let's just say, right? He's wanting to do something. And he does, and he's really, really like wanting to get free of it, and it ain't going. Still having bad dreams. He's having dreams about this one, that one. Maybe he needs to go a little deeper, i.e., maybe he needs saunas, lots of saunas, right, to get it out. Get what out? What are you talking about? Why would he have to go to a sauna to get it out? Well, it's been proven. Going to a lot of saunas, you're sweating out a lot of shit. You're getting traumas out. It's releasing you. Generally, a lot of people start crying in saunas. Why? Because they're sitting silently and still, and there's a lot of heat, and they're like, oh, and they're remembering shit, and they start crying, right? I think sweat lodges have something to do with that as well. Ancient sweat lodges. Anyway, or current sweat lodges, whatever way you want to look at it. But let's say now he realizes, and he's starting to read, and Julie gives him a couple of books, and she's like, really like you. They're going on some dates, they're getting on well. And, again, this is just a story, but she's like, yeah, so have you ever heard of cutting people? And he's like, what's that? I have no idea. What, cutting them with a knife? And she's like, no, have you ever heard of cutting spiritual cords? And he's like, no, I never heard of that. And she's like, okay, start imagining every single person you've ever been with. Now, Julie's very understanding. She's very spiritual, and she says, listen, you need to like really work on this stuff. So John starts cutting cords energetically. He imagines a scissors or knife in his hand or whatever, and it's light, and now he starts cutting every single person that he's ever been with to the best of his ability and knowledge. What starts happening is John starts feeling a whole lot better. Now, do you believe my story or do you not? You don't have to. Again, I've been dealing with this for many, many years. I've been deep, deep, deep in this with many, many different people. And there is 100 million. Don't take my word for it. You can Google it, you can test it yourself or whatever. No matter whether you're Christian or Catholic or whatever, right? They'll say, oh, the blood of Jesus has cleansed you. It's cut off all cords. Okay, great. At least it cut off all cords, right? What about those people who aren't Christian or Catholic that are full of all those cords? Who's going to cut them? Someone needs to cut them. It better be them. Or it better be someone who knows how to teach them to do that. Because if they don't, those energies will remain in that person. Those imprints of energy will remain in that person. That person will be walking around, fucked up, insecure, neurotic, emotional, and energetically fucking vomiting shit and getting ill for imaginary reasons or real reasons or whatever. That energy stays in that person until that person clears it. It ain't going nowhere, right? So let's say John now cuts off all those different cords, and there are various methods and ways of doing that. But let's say he does. Now he's clear, right? Or in a sense, he is liberated. He's free. He's clean, and he doesn't want to live that life anymore. It's kind of like he goes into a Christian bath and, yes, I'm baptized in the name of the Holy Spirit and this and that. Not denying that or saying anything. That's fine if they want to do that. But he's cut everything off. So now John's here and Julie's here. And Julie's clear and clean, and she's been focusing on that her whole life, and so is he. Now they're in a completely different vibration. She's teaching him stuff and he's upgrading, and next thing you know, they're now in a frequency, a nice frequency, and everyone's vibrating on a love frequency, because he's saying, like, I love you. I actually really love you. Now I know what love feels like. I didn't really know before because I was kind of just doing all this shit. And she's like, yeah, I kind of love you too. And he's like, I love you too. And they're in a love vibration. So they're kind of getting, vibrating a similar frequency. So where this gets interesting then is everything's going like that. And then he's like, wow, he's starting to see now, right? John's starting to see. He says, oh, shit, I should have never done that. I should have waited. She's like, yeah, I don't know what it's like to be with someone else. Never been with someone. But the energy is just bouncing, right? Now there's an attraction. Now, let's say, just for argument's sake, Julie had been high body count as well. She had a whole bunch of people, and she did the same thing. But she was aware, and she did salt baths and this and that, and disconnected from everything, and cleared herself and repented, in whatever way you want to call that. But they're in a high vibrational frequency, and they know, they've learned from their mistakes. Now they're vibrating in a nice frequency. Now they have a very good chance. Whether you want to say, oh, they should get married or shouldn't or whatever, not condoning, not telling you that's right or wrong or whatever. You might say you contradict yourself because you said a while ago you should get married or whatever. No, I didn't say that. I might have said that, but what I'm saying right now is I'm not saying you should. I'm saying I would. So in their case, let's say in that position they get married. Well, now they're both clear. Look at the Scientology video, Going Clear. That's an interesting one too. We'll get into all of that stuff, Aleister Crowley, and you might say, how is Aleister Crowley connected to Scientology? We'll get into more of that in the next videos, but let's say they're clear and they're together. Now, there's going to be a lot less problems, right? This video is probably going for an hour, actually. There's going to be a lot less problems. Why? Because they're both energetically clear. Osho has a great thing about a love room. He says, in the love room where you shall be. I'm going to do an Indian accent kind of here. Please don't tell me in the comment section that was bad or anything, but when you go into your love room, you should, when you are with your partner, you should create a love room, and in the love room, you should only make love. You should not sit, you should not discuss anything, you should do nothing else in the love room except make love. Why did he say that? He said, have some fragrance, have some flowers, do this and do that, and some people probably bang on, oh, show this and this and that. Listen, it's like this. Everyone has their own opinion. Bottom line is, with Osho, he said, have a love room. So for all you lovers out there, or families, husband and wives, which we'll get into more and more on this channel, have a love room. If you can afford it, or if you can make that happen, have a love room. Make sure that nothing else happens in that room except lovemaking. Make sure that there's nothing else in there that isn't in relation to lovemaking. Before you enter that room, the room of love, what should take place is that you should not be in a negative state of vibration. You or your wife or your husband or whatever. You should be, both take the shower, both be clean. If you need to energetically clear via a salt bath, if you've had a bad day, this and that, go and do that. Be fully clean, come at the time to the love room, shut the door, and make love. Right? The love room should be in every household. And the reason of that is vibration and frequency. Like we just said a while ago, the body is frequency, the body is energy. So is a bed. So is a bed. Read up a lot of Christian forums where they say about specific artifacts coming into homes, let's say African voodoo and this and that, and masks and various other things. And yeah, we'll get into that as why spirits are tied to masks from different rituals and all that shit. But same as hotel rooms, right? If someone's in a hotel room, I'm actually in a hotel room now. So let's say you've got multiple people banging on one bed, right? They're all fucking each other on one bed and they're fucking off the day later, right? Which happens, right? Do you think that that is a solid place to be making love to your wife, right? And you might say, oh, that doesn't matter. For a lot of people, it doesn't. But people who are highly spiritually sensitive, it will. They'll feel it when they walk into the room. So again, not condoning or saying you should Palo Santo or sage every single room you go into. I'm just giving you an example, right? If you've got a lot of imprints of energy on one specific bed, then when you go to make love on that bed, you might find, and these are all just things for you to take what you want and leave the rest. You might find that those things are affecting or hindering your connection to your partner. Very, very possible. It's happened many times, and many friends have told me as well, different experiences that they've had when they've been in a hotel. And they're like, the whole thing was great. Both the guy and the girl, or the woman and the man, said everything was great. Don't know why just this place didn't feel right. We weren't able to connect. Why? If they're highly spiritual and highly sensitive, they'll be sensitive to the energy, and if they don't clear it, shit just might not even work, in various ways. There might be, or you might end up fighting for some unknown reason. You're like, what the fuck? Why are we fighting? Didn't even know why, just automatically, right? Again, to be taken as you want and leave the rest. But all of this is interesting information because it's real, right? If all these, I've experienced many different parts of what I'm saying as well, different things like the cutting and the energy cords, and I know lots of women and men who've experienced this with them together and separately and all of that stuff too. So like it's very interesting stuff. What I was getting at is that's why everyone should have a love room. And I think the nice thing about marriage is commitment. That you're committed to the person that you want to be with. They're your home. You're their home. For a man to enter a woman and to come inside of her and be in her and ejaculate in her. And it was described to me as one time by a counselor where she said, sex is the glue that keeps you together. Very, very true, right? And also energetically, there's a seed being released into the vagina, and that is also energy, right? Whether either way, whether you look at it in both ways, it's also for the woman, right? She's allowing a man to enter her into her most sacred space, or womb, right? That's why you have a lot of people that do womb clearing. I'm going to get a good friend of mine on as well to speak about that in relation to womb clearing and many of those different things as well, because it's all so interesting. So yeah, obviously that's really, really sacred. So sex is a sacred act, spiritual act. And if you go back into like tantric and tantra and all of this stuff, it's extremely sacred. Although there's some modern age tantra that might be classed as, oh, that's tantric, whereas it's not, right? Tantra is not just sex, which we'll get into in different videos and stuff like that too. But I hope I've hit on a lot of topics that might be helpful to you. We'll get into various artifacts being in various households as well. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but the reason that specific things are tied to specific things and can fuck up connection between partners. Also what's in your bedroom is extremely important. You should not be eating on the bed, fighting on the bed, fucking on the bed, making love on the bed. Some people it won't affect. All right, it will not affect them. Why? Because they're not highly advanced, let's say. And I'm not saying I'm highly advanced, I'm just saying in general, somebody who's not operating at a certain frequency, it might not bother them at all. They might have no issue with that. Where I'm kind of talking about is as someone's advancing more and more spiritually and they're cutting out all the lower vibration shit, they're aiming at something that's not just fucking, right? Or it's not just eating or this and that. It means a lot more to them. then if the energy is not clear, they'll run into many different problems. And I've seen both sides of the spectrum. So I've been in very, very low vibrational relationships where it was just, smashing back a whole bunch of alcohol, drugs, fucking doing this and this and that. Nothing ever affected me or her because we're both in a very low vibration, right? That's just an example. However, if that was like a committed relationship and we were actually looking towards marriage and this and really wanted to raise a family and have kids and talk about these really deep, intimate things, right, where you're sharing your soul with the other person, well, then that's going to require a lot more work, isn't it? And it's also going to require a different space, and it's also going to require a different mind and intellect and emotional intelligence and emotional wellness and maturity, because and physical wellness and maturity, and this, not physical maturity, but do you know what I mean? Basically, you're going to have to be more in a vibration of, hey, we both want this, that's super awesome, let's both go for this, that's super awesome, let's vibrate at that frequency, let's make a commitment to do every single thing we can in our power to be our highest form of good for ourselves and for each other, and then we transcend together, right? And so by doing that, that is kind of the things I'm touching on here. If you're in that state or you're in that type of relationship, then you'll realize that those are the things that'll move you forward towards your greater good, and the greater good for yourself and for your relationship and for your partner and stuff like that. So there'll be relationship stuff on this as well. The little analogy that I talked about a while ago, where I said about John and what did I call her? I can't remember. Julia, was it John and Julia? Like, yeah, like, I mean, there's really a lot of truth to that. This is not some bullshit channel that you're watching. Like, I'm not just making up some random stories. I'm literally giving you like life experience that I've had about this stuff, because it's really deep, and a lot of relationships break up. They don't know why it's happening. They don't know the reason. Like, why am I why being engrossed in external pursuits, why am I losing divine consciousness? Why am I losing connection to my partner? Why is this happening? A lot of the time it's vibrational as well. And one of the things will be, and I'll just mention this before I finish this video, I was in a long-term relationship for a very long time, and I was in a frequency for a specific period of time. We matched very well. And then I started growing and advancing, and there wasn't any growth or advancement on the other side at that time. Later there was, but not at that time. It was a completely different frequency. Am I to blame? Yeah. Is she to blame? Yeah. It just, but sometimes these things happen, right? And that was a really long relationship. But you come out of that, and you have to, at one point my soul was like, you got to leave, you got to get out of this. And I'll do a whole nother video on that. But again, a lot of the things that I spoke about, we hadn't done the clearing, this, that, all the different things. So I could suggest to you, if you're in a relationship right now, or you've just exited one or whatever, think about clearing, learn about clearing, cutting the cords, all of these things. And trust me, right, if you haven't done it, and you've been in a different relationship, and then you got out of that one or whatever, and you did that one thing, try something different. Try cutting the cords, try seeing if they're open to cutting the cords, this and this and that, and watch what happens. Energetically, watch what happens. It'll be a lot better. It'll be a lot clearer. It'll be a lot cleaner. It'll be a lot more open to you, and you'll be aware. And then very quickly, actually, what happens is you'll see very quickly if you match or if you don't, right? Because energy doesn't lie. So it's not about the thinking and this and that. Oh, it's really great. I love going playing football or basketball with them, or I love going to the shop or the cinema. That's all well and good. This is the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with, for example. Build a family with and have children with and grow and maybe build empires with, right? Let's just say. Well, if your energy is about clean, you're going to know very, very quickly if you match or if you don't. And this happens a lot with twin flames as well, where they're extremely high vibrational and they know they're connected, but they both have a lot of work to do. And they'll either do it and they'll upgrade quickly and grow together, or they won't. Or one will and one won't, and they'll just vibrate out of each other's frequency. They might come back after a while, but they might not. And that might be a whole nother lifetime thing. I don't know. I don't really get into that. But we might in another video. Yeah, so being engrossed with external pursuits, we lose divine consciousness, and we do that in many ways. And those many ways are the ways that I have just spoken about. We touched on energy, we touched on imprints, we touched on cutting of energetic cords, we touched on sex, we touched on love, we touched on fucking, we touched on banging, we touched on disconnection, we touched on relationship breakups, we touched on spirituality and seeking God within, we touched on various religions, so we touched on a lot of stuff. And I think that's enough for this video. So peace, love, and light to you. If you need any help, don't forget to contact me in the DM or message me in the comment section. Have a chat with yourselves as well. And like, subscribe, share, turn on the bell for notifications, and make this stuff go viral so that more people can see it and more people understand that, hey, we're living in a world that is spiritual, and that a lot of people are walking around asleep and not awake, which we'll get into in another video. And the more people actually wake up and do the work on themselves, the higher the vibration and the consciousness and the frequency will be, and the more we're going to advance forward as as sovereign divine human beings, souls residing within these physical bodies here on this planet at this time, or on this timeline. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you're having a great day. Peace, love, and light to you. Blessings. Chat soon.